Hey y'all, welcome to the Curious Ones podcast, where each week you're left curious about what we've talked about.
I'm Dan, and she's Sam.
Not sure what we're doing here, but we're going to talk about it. So today, our first segment's topic is going to be Today in History. Now, with it being spooky season, of course we did October the 31st, Halloween, and our date is all the way back in 1926. Side note, I don't tell him what Today in History is usually before we do these.
I like history. I like history, but this is just completely flying blind here. No, that was like Industrial Revolution U.S. I mean,
kind of, yeah. Which it does take place in the U.S.
Okay.
Mostly a little chunk of the story, because the time frame of the story is for like a week.
Okay.
The actual event happens on the 31st, but part of it does take place in like Canada, but that's not really.
Okay, is it strike related?
No, it's not.
Well, I'm just guessing. Go ahead.
You'd think it would. It happens in Detroit, Michigan, actually.
Fair.
But what actually happens is that Harry Houdini, which for those of you who don't know who he was a still a very popular and famous magician, escape artist type. It really depends. Like, he did a lot of escapism tricks, and that's what he got really known for and popular for. But so on October 31st, 1926, in Detroit, Michigan, he dies.
I was going to say, isn't his death, like, super shrouded and, like...
Kind of, yes.
Lots of people have different theories?
Yeah, and we're gonna get into some of those theories about that. Okay, so a little bit of background. Obviously, Harry Houdini was not his real name. It was a stage name that he came up with. His actual name was Eric Weiss. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. He was born in Hungary, so it's a Hungarian name.
Interesting. Right,
so he was born in Hungary in 1874. He ended up moving to the U.S. in 1978 with his mom and his siblings. They came out here to meet his dad, who had already been working out here for a few years.
How do you settle for Houdini after a name like Weiss? Like, that's just...
There was apparently another magician performer who had the name Houdini, and that's where he took the last name from.
Okay.
So he didn't come to the U.S. until 1878 with his mom and his siblings to meet his dad, who had already been living in the U.S., and working here and everything like that. Okay. So he didn't start performing, like, in any kind of way until 1891, where he starts performing on really small shows with a friend of his who was named Jacob Hyman. And again, I'm awful with names, so, like, please don't come at me for that.
What a name, though.
Right. But so they created an act, and they actually called themselves the Brothers Houdini. This was before they were both... As far as I could find, both performing under their correct names, their, like, actual names, but their act was the Brothers Houdini. And like I said, and so that had been kind of a really popular street magician, I think, performer or whatever, who Houdini really liked.
Okay.
And so that's why they came up with the name and everything.
So it was all stolen.
Kind of. I mean, they were performing, like, basic, like, street level tricks. They were doing a lot of card tricks, a lot of sleight of hand stuff at the start. And so, but they stayed mostly local the first year that they were performing. It wasn't until 1892, a year later, when they started to go on the road and travel and stuff. And that was after Houdini's father had died, because I don't think from what I found, his father wasn't super supportive of him doing magic.
Really? I could never imagine that.
Especially considering his father was a rabbi.
I mean, Rabbi Weiss probably would not be very supportive of a guy going up and doing magic tricks.
Oh, man, for real. Work of the devil.
Oof.
Get back in the witchcraft era.
Just sleight of hand. Like, it's
literally,
not even...
Literally, not even magic, just very good sleight of hand. So anyways, they started traveling in 92 after his father had passed. They would really perform, like, in alleyways behind museums or in, like, really small rundown theaters. Like,
sounds awesome.
Yeah, they did, like, real low-level stuff, kind of.
Okay.
Hard
to get people to show up to a magic show, in all seriousness.
Actually, that's the thing. A lot of magic in the U.S. was being performed on the U.S. vaudeville circuit. For those of you who don't know, vaudeville was... Okay, so traditionally, it's a theater genre in France that's meant to pair comedy and, like, morality or, like, psychological undertones. When it came to the U.S., it just became a series of unrelated comedy sets that were all on the same bill. But, so, like, vaudeville... Like,
wait, so America took it and just said, it's comedy. Oh, yeah. We find it comical.
Yep. I mean, it was meant to be comical, but it was meant to have a tone to it. And U.S. was just like, all these things are funny. They'll go on the same thing.
That sounds about right.
So a lot of magicians performed on vaudeville circuits at that point. So, like, it was actually pretty common for people to go see magic shows, just because also, like, what else was your entertainment in the late 1800s?
Being poor, child labor.
Right, so go, like, spend 2 cents and go see a vaudeville show. I don't actually know how much they cost at that point in time.
Say 2 cents is a lot of money always.
That too. Wait, always?
Well, okay, let's not talk about inflation, okay?
But so they would perform a lot of really small shows. So in 1894, he ends up marrying his wife, whose name I am going to absolutely butcher if I try to pronounce it. Everyone just called her Bess. Every time I heard her referred to, it was Bess, which her middle name was Beatrice, so I guess that's where they got Bess from.
That makes sense.
Again, I'm not going to even try and pronounce her full name. I will butcher it, and I will feel bad about it. But
over here, like, country of origin. Like, let's guess.
Oh, I don't even know. I think it said that she was, like, Polish.
Okay. Because,
like, and also her name is...
Nope, we don't have to try. No. We don't have to try. It's not worth it. Long. I don't, yeah.
Yeah, but, so anyways, they got married, she became his assistant, and the two of them started traveling together. It kind of seems like his friend Jacob just kind of fell off after that. Like, they separated, parted ways. And either he went to go do something else or became a magician. I didn't really look into him.
Imagine being that guy.
Right. But so they started traveling under the name The Houdinis because now they were married. He was using the stage name Harry Houdini, and she was his assistant / wife. So The Houdinis became their stage name. Then for the next, like, 4 or 5 years, they really just traveled around a whole lot, kind of lived on the road, performed a lot of really small shows, and a lot of... I'm trying to think. They weren't really interviews, but, like, a lot of conversation about Houdini and a lot of the way that Houdini kind of talked to people about his career. He started to sound really burnt out. There were times he mentioned just quitting altogether and, like, not even performing at all ever again. That is, until he caught the attention of a vaudeville booking agent. This is how he got onto the vaudeville circuit, because before that he wasn't really on it. He was just kind of doing random shows wherever he could. He had started to kind of gain some popularity because of his tricks and how good he was of a performer and a showman. He had really great showmanship. So, like, a lot of people really started to like him. So he started to gain a little bit more, but he was having to perform so many shows for so little money that it was burning him out. So he's at this one show it was specifically a beer garden. I couldn't find where. But he catches the attention of a vaudeville booking agent who is named Martin Beck. And Beck sees him perform a handcuff trick, like he escapes from handcuffs. And the dude's like, I like that shit. And books him. Weirdest thing ever, though, about this dude, Martin Beck, didn't look into him at all, except for the interaction he had with Houdini at this beer garden. He sees him perform this handcuff trick, and then he's like, yo, I like that trick. Can you escape from my handcuffs? Pulls out a pair of cuffs and is like, hey, perform this with my cuffs. And I'm just like, why do you have handcuffs at a beer garden? Like, what kinky shit are you into in 1899?
He's prepared.
Why, though?
Is he not a cop?
No, he's a booking agent. He's a vaudeville... He's a vaudeville booking agent.
Well, because
talent agent.
So he's probably constantly dealing with magicians, right?
I'm just like, why are you carrying?
I'm trying to find a good reason. I'm assuming that he constantly deals with magicians who would just use, like, tricked locks.
Right, but
he's like, well, I'm gonna test him.
I'm just like, he wasn't going there to scout Houdini. Like, he was literally just at the beer garden chilling. And, like, you carrying handcuffs, bruh? What wild shit you getting into?
Be prepared.
But so anyways, he gets booked by this Martin Beck. And it really kind of saves Houdini's career. Like, probably without this dude, Houdini would not have become the name he was. Because he was able to book him for large shows, meaning he didn't have to perform as many, he wasn't traveling as much, but he was still getting paid more per show than he had been.
Yeah, it's all about their press agent.
Right. So it really helped kind of save his career. It's kind of weird to think about the fact that, like, had this dude not had a pair of handcuffs on him and fucking seen Houdini.
Okay, there's a part of me that thinks that maybe if he didn't have the handcuffs on him, he still might have been impressed.
I don't know, I'm just saying.
Maybe he would have gone, is there an officer in the crowd? Can I use their handcuffs?
I'm just saying. Kind of sus. But anyways, without this guy being at this very specific beer garden, at this very specific show, so much of, like, just the icon that Houdini became would not have existed. Because, like, he's known for, like...
I feel like this is a story with everyone, though. For every, like, famous person, they're like, yeah, and there's this one break that if it wouldn't have happened, they wouldn't have... I mean, it's like... If this one person had been born, well...
But this is legit, like, a really weird coincidence of just, like, someone showed up to a beer garden with handcuffs.
But I think there's a lot of
people
showing up to beer gardens with handcuffs in the history of famous people.
I don't know.
I think all those words strung together does make some sense, but also might be the first time those words have been said in that order.
I don't know, it's just kind of weird to think about, because, like, there's actual phrase, like, pulling a Houdini...
Yeah.
Is a legit thing. Because of this dude.
It is a pop culture phrase, yeah.
Because of this dude. And, like...
Okay, well, I don't want to give him that much credit.
No, I meant, like, because of Houdini. I meant because of Houdini.
Okay, not because of the guy who shows up to parties with handcuffs. I do not encourage showing up to parties with handcuffs, people.
I do. So, 99, he gets booked by a vaudeville agent, is able to really save his career because he's getting paid more for doing less shows. Totally great. So in 1926, we're in October. So this has been 27 years since he was discovered. He's been doing tours, he's been doing shows, like, he's created a really huge name for himself at this point.
Dude's been doing magic for 30 years.
Yep, he is at this point 52 years old, and he is still performing.
He's been doing magic longer than I've been alive.
Yep.
At this point.
He's been doing magic longer than I've been alive.
Correct.
He has been on the vaudeville circuit longer than I have been alive. So, 1926... October, he's made a really big name for himself. He's out performing. So, October 11th, he is performing a show. He's doing one of his tricks, his escapism tricks, and he breaks his ankles. As far as I'm aware, he fully broke the one and just really injured the other. Because
this is a thing that, the way I think, because of magicians nowadays, was it on purpose?
No.
Okay.
Or at least it said it wasn't on purpose. Okay. But so he's in Albany, New York, performing a show, breaks his ankles. Or breaks one ankle, injures the other. I should be more specific with that. So he breaks one ankle, injures the other.
At 50.
52.
Yeah, it's not going to do well.
Refuses to get medical treatment. He's like, nope, I ain't got time for that shit.
Hey, you know what? I'm torn on this one.
Okay.
People might think that's a bad idea. Mm-hmm. This is what year? 1926?
Yeah.
Amputation's on the table. Like, I don't think it's... I think not doing medical at that point in time might have been worth it. They're just going to stick leeches in you and go, this might be a good idea.
Okay, 1926 wasn't... They weren't entirely that far back when it came to broken ankles.
I don't know.
Moving on. So dude refuses to get any real treatment. He has, I think it was, he had them, like, set his ankle and kind of wrap it, but he didn't get a cast on. He didn't actually, like, postpone any of the shows. He was like, I'm just going to keep going. And so instead he goes to Montreal. So we're up in Canada now. He goes to Montreal and performs some shows.
Mr. Worldwide over here.
Yeah.
Leaving the country.
Goes, performs some shows, performs some lectures, which we'll get to what the lectures were about later. Okay. So he goes and he does that. This is now 22 days later. He's been going around Montreal. He ends up having a matinee show. So like a daytime afternoon show. So he has a matinee show, after which there was a group of medical students who come by to see him. Now, Part of this reason was because Houdini had built up this rep for himself that he could, like, withstand any kind of punch.
Yes. This is more important, if I remember from the story of his death.
Yes.
Was him being, like, not only was he this magician, he was also, like, on the side, this, like, I'm a tough man.
Which he was. Honestly, if you look at pictures of him, he actually was kind of more jacked than I think he would be for a magician.
Yeah.
I almost said musician.
Yeah,
for a magician. Like, he was actually kind of jacked, which that's how he did a lot of his tricks. A lot of his tricks, his escapism tricks, just used straight up brute force.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah. So he has a bunch of med students come and see him. One of these specific med students was named Jocelyn Whitehead. And he came up and he asked Houdini, who at this time was reportedly, like, reclined on, like, one of those lounge couches. Mm-hmm. And he was laying back on there and he goes, "Yo, can I punch you?" I don't know if he said it like that. He probably didn't say it like that. He was probably
I'm sure in the 1920s he went, "Yo, let me hit you."
"Yo, dude, can I get a punch in?"
Trying to catch these hands.
That was probably something more like, "Mr. Houdini, sir, could I please?" I don't know.
Top hat, monocle, yep.
Right. Anyways, but Whitehead walks up to Houdini and is like, "Hey, can I punch you?" Like, he wants to do the thing. That sounds wrong. So, and Houdini at the time is laying on a couch, reclining back, and it's reported before Houdini could finish saying yes. I don't know how fast it actually happened, but Whitehead just, like, lays into Houdini. Houdini's not even able to get up from the couch. Typically, the way he was able to handle or withstand, whatever you want to use, the punches is he would tighten his abdomen.
Yeah, like how boxers train when they're doing their ab workouts and get hit on purpose.
So he did the same thing. But apparently Whitehead ends up hitting him so fast he's not able to tighten his gut. He's not able to even get off of the couch. So, like, dude just immediately starts laying into Houdini. Hits him like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, doesn't even punch him a single time. Hits him multiple times.
So just assault. Mm-hmm. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. There's not really a whole lot of clarity on what happens next, other than, like, Houdini kind of tries to play it off like, "Those were some good hits, bro. Catch you guys later." Basically, that's my interpretation of how that probably went. Probably not.
You just Gen Z'd Houdini's death.
Yes, I did.
Guy walks up, "Yo, trying to catch these hands?" Yeah, before he could finish saying yeah, and got hit 3 times, and then he goes, "Those were some pretty good hits, bro. I'm out. Peace." A couple days later, dies.
Yep. And that was it for today in history. No, I'm kidding. Kind of.
And that was last week.
So, hits him. The med students end up leaving. You know, Houdini tries to play it off like it's whatever. Didn't actually hurt him. Later that night, they are going and completing a 15-hour train ride from Montreal down to Detroit. Apparently, the entire ride, he was complaining of severe abdominal pain. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Shocking. He just got hit a couple of times. So anyway, so he goes on this train ride, complains of pain. By the time he arrived in Detroit, he had a fever of 104. And so they're not really sure how long he had that fever for, because, like, they didn't have a doctor on the train.
Everything's fine.
Right. But he's got a fever of 104. The doctor who sees him actually says, like, "You have appendicitis. You need to get medical attention right now, and you need to have this removed before it bursts." And Eugenie's just like, "No, I'm good."
Can being punched cause appendicitis?
Hold up. Stop jumping ahead of me. So he's diagnosed with appendicitis. Doctor's like, "Yo, you need this removed." Eugenie's like, "No. I'm going to go and finish the show." He is supposedly quoted, I don't know how legit this quote is, but he's apparently quoted as saying that, "I will do this show if it's my last."
Ding, 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 ding.
Right. So he goes, performs the show. He actually passed out a couple of times, like, during the show, it's reported, but he was able to he passed out, really quickly got back up and was like, no, I'm good.
That's healthy.
Right. Mm-hmm. So after the show, he passes out again, and this time he doesn't get up as fast. So his wife is like, okay, you're done. You're going to the hospital.
Yep.
So she takes him to the hospital. Now, mind you, this is like the 25th. So really late on the 25th, they're going to the hospital. Gets there. Doctors are like, your appendix burst. We're going to go take that thing out right now. Take him into surgery, remove his appendix. While they're removing his appendix, they find out that he has developed peritonitis, which is a really, really bad infection. Like, it's a very difficult infection to get rid of, and it can be caused, if I remember correctly. Don't come at me. I'm not a medical professional. I don't have a degree. If I remember correctly, it's like a long-term infection. Like, it's something where you've had an infection for a bit, and it's made it worse, and then you've developed peritonitis. And
a word.
Yep. And so it's a really difficult infection. It's a really bad infection. So they find out he has that. So remove his appendix, start treating him for the peritonitis. Through IV antibiotics is the typical best treatment for it, as far as I'm aware.
And that's the thing they have?
Yes.
Good.
It's 1920s.
It's such a long time ago for me. It's like...
I think penicillin was invented before that.
Does it mean that it was widely accepted and used?
Fair.
I keep forgetting that he had money. That's a very important part of this.
So, anyways, remove his appendix. He's being treated for the peritonitis. Now, a few days later, the 28th, they actually have to go back in to remove part of the infection, to remove some, other, I assume scar tissue buildup that had started to form severely. Just, he goes in for a second operation to try and, help. Mm-hmm. He's not getting better. He needs help.
Yeah.
So he goes back in for the second operation. They're going back in, removing some of the infection. They also introduce a new serum. That's how it was listed as. I'm going to assume it was a new medication, but your faith in the 1926 medical system says it was probably a serum. A few days after that, we are now at October 31st. And I believe this happened in the early morning of the 31st. He actually develops sepsis. Goes into septic shock. Those of you who don't know what septic shock is, it's a horribly severe infection that causes your organs to start shutting down. It basically poisons your blood. When you go into septic shock, it means there's infection spreading all over you and shutting shit down. Your basically your body is like, I'm tired and I'm done. And so your body will shut down. It's very... Nowadays, you've got a 50-50 shot whether or not septic shock is going to kill you. 1926, there was almost no chance you were going to survive that.
Yeah.
They didn't have the technology available and the response times to be able to help with something like that. So Houdini goes sepsis, dies.
Yep.
So sad. Huh?
On Halloween.
On Halloween. We are, I believe it was early morning of the 31st. Someone comes in to check him during shift changes. He's dead. It was actually reported as being said that the night before he's talking to, I think it was one of his nurses. He's talking to them and he's saying, I am tired. I am tired of fighting. Again, I don't know how legit that is. Last words always seem to be very profound. Don't know how legit that is, or if he literally just said, I am tired, and someone took it as, I'm tired. He said, I'm tired of fighting.
Yeah.
We're counting on other people's words here. Don't know how reliable they can be. I don't know. It's also
a celebrity of the time, so... Right.
But reportedly, he supposedly said, I'm tired of fighting the night before he died. So, and that was Houdini's life. I mean, he dies at 52 from really severe infections that he developed which is the only real conclusive cause of death. And we don't know anything else really about that other than the infection, because his wife never had him have an autopsy. She was like, just bury him.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I get that. Like, so especially when it's something like an infection, you're like, I don't want to know more. I just know that they're done suffering.
Yeah. Also,
like,
yeah,
and in 1926,
yeah.
there's not enough like in-depth technology they could really probably do to get more of an answer. So he dies.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a couple things we're gonna go back on. So, like you said earlier, his death is kind of shrouded in a whole lot of theories because people debate what caused the infections.
Okay.
There are some people who suggest that it was the hits. It was the punches that he took that caused his appendix to rupture.
Yeah, which is why I was like, is that a thing?
So, it is the most widely accepted theory that was the cause. That his appendicitis caused the infection, which then killed him. The appendicitis was caused from the punches to the gut.
Huh.
Now, here's the thing. It is extremely, extremely rare to cause appendicitis through blunt force trauma, which is what those hits would have been. There is actually, out of all the studies that have been conducted about it, there is nothing conclusive, and you would be hard-pressed, especially probably nowadays, to find a medical professional who would say, that's totally how that could happen.
Got it. So,
it's very unlikely.
I was going to say, otherwise every football player would have had appendicitis. I'm just like... or boxer, or MMA fighter, or...
There are a lot of people who theorize that he had an underlying condition, and, like, that he was developing appendicitis, and that the hits just kind of caused enough trauma to then completely rupture his appendix.
I'm going to say, he was 52 in 1926. He wasn't living the cleanest. He wasn't... Right.
So there's a lot of theories behind... A lot of suggestions, a lot of widely accepted ideas behind that. That maybe he was just already kind of sick, and the hits just exasperated the condition, caused the appendicitis, and they caused it to rupture. There's a lot of theories behind that. One theory that, before I get into all the other ones that are kind of a little out there, one theory that I didn't see that, like, I started to kind of think about was, like, he broke his ankles 2 weeks before that. He was found with peritonitis. What if he broke his ankles, developed an infection from that, it traveled up into his bloodstream, aggravated, like he had the underlying condition from his appendix, he developed the fever, developed appendicitis, got bad enough that it ruptured his appendix, just ended up rupturing. And it's legitimately the infection that killed him. But what if it wasn't caused by his appendix?
So, this is me being a little naive, and I don't know this.
Okay.
He didn't... Infection from breaking your own bone seems very rare.
It's not...
Because it's not like they like did anything to fix it, because he didn't go anywhere. So it's not like they put pins in or they did anything like that could open him up.
There's the possibility that him fracturing his ankle broke off a small piece of the bone that then cut into, like, one of the veins.
That seems really rare.
Almost as rare as getting appendicitis from blunt force trauma. Fair enough. It's not something that's unheard of, especially for 1926, when you weren't living the healthiest and you weren't living the cleanest.
But see, I think you could just have an infection from being gross. Like, and not eating the cleanest. Like...
That also is a little bit more... Especially with, like... If you're not connecting it to any of the injuries he had received within those two, like from the time he broke his ankles to when he died, like there's the breaking of the ankles, the punches, like if you're not, it's also really rare to just spontaneously get an infection, which is kind of what that's suggesting.
Is it rare to have I don't know, I'm like...
I feel like it's rarer than possibly having broken his bone in some way that caused an infection.
Just a regular... Like, I'm just thinking, like, there's so many different types of infection that I'm just like...
Correct. But...
You just get a cut and you get an infection, because especially when he's doing stuff in, like, water and...
Right.
And that can lead to, if your body is... I'm saying, if you think about all the compacting factors that he already has, okay? His body's trying to deal with the repairing his ankle. His body's trying to deal with getting hit in the gut 3 times, at least, plus all the other times and all the other things his 52-year-old body's going through to try and do all these magic tricks and contorting himself and everything. And he just gets cut on a piece of metal, and it gets infected. And then, he thinks he's fine. His body's still working on it. And then compounded with all this other things, I could see that being more of an option than we give credit to, I guess.
Fair, I guess. The thing
That's
is, unfortunately,
just a theory.
I don't have a whole lot of reports on him in any way injuring himself any more than those 2 incidents between that time.
Don't think anyone's looking at his entire body.
Fair. I agree that there's the possibility that cuts may not have been reported in this array that I've gathered from a handful of pages and videos.
I guess I don't accept the infections are rare, are equally as rare as a bone.
Well, I'm not saying infections are rare. I'm just like looking at the evidence that I have from what I've been able to read. The more almost spontaneous that one that you're kind of suggesting, considering I don't have any information on whether or not he injured himself again during a show, whether that was a cut or anything else. I don't have any info that's suggesting that an infection could present in any of these other ways.
Okay.
That's, I guess, all I'm saying is I just don't have, I guess in a way I don't have the info to agree or disagree with what you're saying.
Okay.
Fair enough?
It's just theories.
Yes. Which I also would like to think, because, like, there's the time between when he got hit and when he got sick and, like, developed the infection that we've discovered
is the next day, right?
No. So he gets hit, takes a 15-hour train ride. So they don't...
an infection I had a fever of 104 that day, right?
It was believed to be from the appendicitis. So fair enough, it probably could have also been from... But that's just it. An infection that bad to give him a fever of 104, I don't think would have developed over that 15-hour period.
Okay, what were the other theories? I just remember the theories of, like, he died because of... There's things that, like, just aren't true. There were, like, theories that were just like, oh, he died doing a trick.
Yeah, not true.
Or, like, him dying was a trick.
So, the other theories are proposed that... So, a lot of other theories, probably one of the other big ones, is that he was actually assassinated. That somehow, either a group of magicians or spiritualists...
Never mind. God,
poisoned him.
I played too much Clue. I instantly was like, it was his wife. His wife did it. That's what the problem is. No autopsy. That's suspicious.
She was not at all. She was not at all considered. So.
Who got the money?
I actually don't know. I didn't look. So, there's a couple... So, they either thought it was magicians or part of the spiritualist community at the time who killed him. Now, the reasons for this being were magicians... Houdini had a really bad rap among a lot of them. Like, he was not well liked by a lot of the community of magicians.
Did he, like, share secrets?
No, the opposite, kind of. So, what... Okay, so share secrets by how? His secrets or others?
Oh, others.
Yes.
He liked to... He had if I'm remembering this correctly, this is all me just going off of, like, memory of, like, random things I've learned or, like, theories that I've heard. He would, like... find a magician that's doing, like, what he would consider to be hacky or not very good, like, and then he would just do a thing where he would just show everyone what they do. Like, he would like tear it apart, like, how bad it is, like, how it's not skillful or not.
So it was part of that. That was part of the, like, smaller kind of, like, scene that he came up from.
Okay. That
he did that too. But there were a lot of magicians within the vaudeville circuit as well who really disliked him because he would do something similar because he would buy their tricks. So, like, most magicians would copyright their tricks and put patents out on them. Or no.
I don't think you could patent a trick.
You can.
That's sick. That's awesome.
So you can patent a trick, and that's what a lot of people would do, so that then other people would have to either pay them to perform their trick or would not be allowed to perform their trick.
You can patent swallowing a goldfish? Dude.
So he would buy the rights to these patents, so then he was now the owner of the trick. He'd take the trick, and he, at the time, what they called Houdini'd it. So, like, he very specifically bought from this one magician a trick where you can make a donkey disappear off the stage. Like, this magician had the trick. He made the donkey disappear.
Oh, is this the one where he made it huge?
Yeah, he took an elephant and made it disappear. Mm-hmm. And as far as the time that this research was done, which was less than a decade ago, no one had really figured out how he did that.
How he made, right?
I don't remember. I think that's how the donkey one was performed. But people weren't sure how he did the elephant with it because of how big it was. Mirror. But, like, because of how big that elephant was. Yeah. So, like I said, as far as I knew from that, I didn't look into the trick afterwards because I was just like, okay.
Okay, but on that note, there was a TV show. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent because I want to talk about it. There was a TV show called The Masked Magician. Mm-hmm. Where they would just spoil or like explain all of these super... It was such a cool show. Yeah. I was like, I'm surprised there aren't more magicians now because that show was like so cool to me.
I don't think I ever watched it. It looked really good.
And then it gave like... I think that's where like... And then I started watching like Penn and Teller. And I was like, oh wow, you can be really skilled.
Yep. But so that's what Houdini would do is he'd take a trick, buy it, and then make it bigger than the original performers and just kind of outshow them.
So could the original performer not perform that trick anymore?
He had to pay Houdini for it. Houdini owned the patent. Houdini had bought out the patent. That's what I figured. That's why I personally wouldn't care. Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm selling it, then I probably either A, really needed the money, or B, I've done the trick so much that it's like, meh. Like, it's not as appealing to me. I'm tired of it. Let's see what someone else could do. That's like I guess it's the creative lifestyle from here. Like,
but I guess I would also kind of understand back in that time, it was like all about your image, and it's like he just took your trick and did it better than you.
Open up my file of other tricks and start selling to all the people. Going, hey, look at what I did.
Right, but that's it. Then they're not yours. Like I said, as far as I'm aware, I don't fully understand patent law, especially not from 1926 or 1920s.
Would he patent it? Would he patent it from underneath them, or would he buy their patents?
So he bought their patents, but I think that means they don't own it anymore. So they have to pay him for it to perform the tricks.
If they perform the trick, yeah. But right. I'm just thinking. I don't know. I'm thinking that would be a net positive, but I can see where. I guess I can see where they would.
Right, and again, I'm trying. Like I said, it's kind of that image thing. You're no longer a good magician with this trick because he just did it better than you.
Yeah, but again, I guess in my mind I'm like, I retire that trick because I sold it, and I don't want to pay the person that I sold it to do it.
But it's still, you're not the top one with that trick anymore. Yeah. You're not the top one who performed that trick anymore. Your image is less than it was.
I guess. I don't know. I don't buy it.
I also feel like you're not putting yourself in the mindset of like how small some people's egos can be.
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around small ego people. I'm sorry.
I've known a few of them. I get it.
It's not really I don't get small it, ego is insecure.
Whichever. I feel like sometimes they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Either way, people got offended by it.
Yeah.
He would also then, rather than patenting his tricks, he'd never patent his tricks. Oh. Because then you told people how to do them. What he would do is he would book out a really small theater and perform the trick one night only on stage to a very small audience, and it was now copyrighted.
Okay, so he got into the copyright law.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm not exactly sure how the rest of all that worked out because I don't understand those laws. Not fully, at least. Not mostly.
We're not medical professionals or doctor or lawyers. Guess what?
Correct. Not doctors. That's medical professional. But yeah, no, not lawyers either. Please don't come to us with legal advice. You will never find us on r/legal advice. That's not true. I might have questions.
I'm definitely going to be on. I'm definitely going to or grab some funny stories from there eventually. I'm not going to be. I'm going to be honest.
But so anyway, so he did that. And he wasn't, most magicians weren't a fan of him. He wasn't a big...
Most of them? Really?
As far as I could find, there was of the time of 1926.
All right, so all 12 of them hated him.
I can't say you're wrong, because I didn't look up how many magicians there were during that time.
It was kind of popular. There were probably, like, thousands.
But, so a lot of the magician community weren't a huge fan of him, just for the way...
He was also successful, which is also another reason a lot of people would just be jealous.
Right, and they just weren't a fan of the way that he carried out his behavior...
Business.
Off the show, or off of the, like, shows. Like, how he acted behind scenes.
Yeah.
To the community. So there was thought that they maybe tried poisoning him or whatever.
He was also kind of an old head, right? Like, at this point, he's 52.
Right, he's been around for 2 decades in the scene.
Which he's probably kind of doing things not the next generation would how they would want to do it.
Right. But so there was that theory.
So how would they have killed him?
Out. So it's thought that they hired Whitehead.
Oh, the medical to punch him.
Either that or to make him weak and then open up a window for them to be able to get in there and like poison him in some way. Poison was another really big one that was thrown out. I was
say poison is a valid like option. Mm-hmm. I can't wrap my head around paying someone to punch him, even though that's been a bit he's done forever. Like,
well, the point was to have him punch him so hard numerous times before he was able to tighten his abdomen and like actually do. Okay,
I don't buy that one.
I'm just saying that was a theory that was thrown out there. It is very widely discredited just because. Again, a lot of people don't think it's something that can happen to cause appendicitis. Appendicitis is a really shitty way to try and kill someone because they could just have their appendix removed.
Yep.
Done. And just, it's not a very well liked theory because of the holes that appear in the story.
Yeah.
When you get to that. So really, honestly, so the big theories with the groups trying to assassinate him is just that they poisoned him because he also didn't travel around with security.
I mean, that makes sense. He's a strongman.
He's a strongman in 1926. He didn't think of it. Nobody really thought of it. So he doesn't have security.
What would security do? Treat him like royals, make him eat his food first, see if they die?
Right.
I don't know.
So he didn't travel around with security. So there were options. There were abilities for people to, I guess,
even if he had security and it was other magicians that were the problem, they could have just talked to him because they still had that ability to, because they're still in the same profession.
Unless he was like, no, don't talk to me, don't let them talk to me.
I don't know.
I don't know. Not the point. Anyways, didn't travel with security, so it left him a little more open on certain fronts.
Yeah.
So poison for this theory and the next one are really the big options on how he was killed. Or how he died. It's not certain he was killed. He just died.
Well, yeah, okay.
But so there's a group of magicians. The next theory is that people from the spiritualist community at that time killed him. Which in the U.S., the spiritualist movement was gaining a lot of popularity in the early 20s.
Now, this one's the one where he just hated spiritualists. He would go to, if I remember this correctly, he would go and just endlessly shit on spiritualists. Mm-hmm. Like, he was, like, quoted saying bad, like how bad and fake it is, and how
he wrote books on it.
Yeah.
Remember those lectures I mentioned that he was doing? Lectures and shows in Montreal? Mm-hmm. They were lectures to colleges and, like, in college classes about the absolute bullshit he thought spiritualism was. And there was actually, at the time of his death, he was working on passing through, was it Congress I think it was Congress, a bill that would, like, basically outlaw spiritualism, like, people to hold spiritual practices, like, seances and that.
Oh, dang.
Obviously didn't go through. He died. But he was trying to get it passed. So, yeah, he absolutely hated spiritualism. Wrote a couple books about it and just absolutely trashed it. So it was thought that because of the amount of hate he was spreading about the community, that they tried to kill him.
Yeah.
And it's actually even said that for about the next 3 years after he died, he had made a deal with his wife, Bess, that if he ever died, if one of them ever died, the other one would spend as long as they could trying to prove that they were out there. They came up with, like, this secret code word that they would pass to each other and, like, trying everything. And she tried for 3 years to see if she could find a medium to give her this code word. Mm-hmm. Never happened. Never happened. Yeah, but, like, he wrote multiple books about it. He even actually most famously kind of humiliated one of who at the time was kind of like a really good friend of his, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Ah, that's a famous name.
Yeah, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Yep.
So him and his wife were really into spiritualism, like hardcore into spiritualism. Arthur Conan Doyle actually thought that Houdini had, like, a sixth sense about him, and he just didn't know it at the time.
Hey, you're special, kid.
Right.
I know you got something going on.
Which was actually the entire reason Doyle initiated the friendship between the two of them. And they just ended up actually becoming friends. Well, there was after... Let me find it. So, in 1913, Houdini's mother dies. Now, Houdini was a big old mama's boy.
Okay.
Big old mama's boy. Real upset his mom died. So he agrees for Doyle's wife to hold a seance to try to communicate with his mother. And she goes, says she connects with her, writes out this 15-page letter. And Houdini takes it, goes home, doesn't make mention of the fact that the letter being written in English doesn't make sense because his mother never spoke English.
That's where the war started. Mm-hmm. And that's a just feud, if I might need to be honest. That's, like, way better than the magician one. Right.
So, and, like, he hated spiritualism before that. He had written a book before that that was called... I have it written down. It was called Miracle Mongers and Their Methods. It was literally a paragraph. He wrote paragraphs for his titles. I'm annoyed about it because I didn't.
Book. People be doing way too much. Let me tell you, this is actually just the first paragraph of this book.
Right, and that book was about the spiritualist movement and a lot of underhanded tricks that street magicians would do. So, like, he kind of got
three-card Monty and all that stuff.
So, like, he did both of them in that book. So it wasn't like he was all about just hating on spiritualism at the time. But after this seance where he supposedly gets a letter from his mother that he thinks is absolute horseshit, which I don't disagree with, but side note to this. The only thing I could think of is that, like, I think it was Doyle's wife who was holding the seance, like, actually connecting with his mother. As far as I'm aware, she only spoke English. So, like, the only thing that I can think of is that, like, the spirit realm doesn't communicate in languages. And so, like, they had this communication, and then she was able to write it out in English because it's just, like, a universal language. I don't know. I don't actually believe in most of this horse shit, but that's the only thing I can think of to explain that.
Shout out to her for doing all that homework for no pay. I'm just going to be honest. She wrote way too much. I would have been like, here's a sentence. She said, I'm good.
Right. I'm also like, bruh, like, 15 pages? I don't think all of that was horseshit.
Okay, all of that I think all of that was horseshit. I think all of that was her trying to persuade somebody who's a friend of theirs into a thing that they believe in.
Fair. I mean, okay, fair enough, because she could have had some insight into the relationship, being friends with them for years.
Yeah.
Fair.
I think she had to have insight. She's like...
Fair. Especially if it was a big mama's boy. I guess, okay, fair, fine. But, like, that's the only thing that I could think of to explain the letter being in English, not Hungarian.
Isn't that the whole thing of seances and, like, those types of... Is you're supposed to just pick up on facial cues and other things as you're just writing? Like, that's the whole thing where it's like, it's like they guess your age stuff at fairs and stuff. I don't know a whole
lot of seances that actually write out the stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
fair.
Yes, giving out, like, very generic statements kind of like that is a thing. Same thing with palm readings and...
Yeah.
tarot cards do have some meaning, but, like, interpreting them for people is kind of meant to be, yeah. You're reading body language and very base information that a person tells you.
I just watched last night with my other friends the Haunted Mansion remake.
Don't tell me about it. I want to watch this so bad.
Okay. I don't think this is a spoiler. I don't think it's a spoiler. There's a point where one of the guys is doing this. He's, like, completely half-assing a, like, reading or whatever. And he's just got a pad and he's just, like, pretending to write. And it shows the scribbles that he's doing. And you see the high school S on the book.
Oh, I have seen a little clip
the, like,
of that.
6 lines or whatever.
That's great.
And I'm just looking at it and I go, it's the S! Just to show that, like, some of them are just doing nothing.
Yeah. So, like, that was a big thing. So, after this seance that completely goes awry, gets a 15-page letter that is bullshit from his mother. Which I guess the contents of the letter, just a lot of it was repeating that, like, she loved him, she was proud of him.
I'm going to say, I feel like half this is, like, you just repeat what you wrote in page 2 on page 6.
So after this, he very specifically goes and writes the book. And again, I am paraphrasing the title because he wrote paragraphs as his title. Like, he wrote paragraphs.
I don't think he wrote titles. I think he just started writing and was like, that's the name of the book.
Fair. It's called A Magician Among the Spirits, and Expo as a...
actually, that's a pretty concise first part.
There's
I know, the expose of the...
There's like a half dozen more words. Letters. Words?
Letters or words?
Words.
Okay.
Words.
I would hope.
I was like, is word the right one?
There's only 6 more letters. Oh, okay.
Right. Anyways, but so he wrote that book next, and that's when he really kind of ramped up the lectures he gave on anti-spiritualism. So, like, there was this seance was really just a big catalyst for him because he was so hurt by it. He was really close to his mother, and he's like, she is the one person I know I can rely on, that if the spirit world is real, she'll show me. Mm-hmm. And it didn't happen. And then his wife tried for 3 years after he died, and it didn't happen.
So his books were justified.
But yeah, so it was thought that the spiritualist community then tried to kill him because he was spreading all this hate about them.
That makes more sense because they're actually losing their whole shtick.
Right. So, there's a possibility. I don't know. Sorry, I had to make sure you didn't text me. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like the likely one is just he had already kind of it pre-existing. Yeah. Was already building up an infection from minor cut, from the broken ankle, from existing
1926 living.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he already had an infection, and it aggravated. He was 52 in 1926. You said it already. He was 52. I think life just fucking happened. Which is also what another common theory.
And he's doing that's not that old even at that time period. Like, people lived into their much longer, but that's old in the sense that what he's doing to his body every day is doing crazy hard, getting punched on purpose. He's just doing things that a normal person shouldn't or wouldn't be doing. Right,
a lot of the force and strength that he's using at that time is not equivalent, but probably relatively equivalent to what a lot of bodybuilders kind of nowadays, the amount of...
I have a hard time. There's no equivalency nowadays because we have science and steroids and all these things that people are doing. They're living in hyperbaric chambers. Right. They're sleeping in... Yeah, it doesn't...
But, even still, there's a lot of people in very... It's the physical careers that don't last into their 50s in those careers.
Or things like that.
Yeah, they don't stay in they don't stay in that career till they're 50. Yeah. So, he just, in general, he put his body through a lot of abuse. And just kind of eventually caught up to him. Which is also, probably behind Whitehead is the second most popular theory and most widely accepted of what happened. Is that he put his body through a lot of abuse, and it eventually caught up with him. And sad, bad luck hit. That's what happened.
All right, now tell us in the comments which one you think it is.
Right.
Or don't be afraid to throw some unhinged stuff down there.
If you have more statistics on like how any of those infections happen, throw them at me. I don't even care if they're wrong. I'll still read them.